And welcome to today's stream. I'm Angie, I'm your host, and today we're going to be taking our secondary colors, orange and violet, and we're going to be toning them down using a gray. So, the last couple weeks we worked with creating secondary colors. Some we created from scratch by mixing two of the primary colors, and others we used the manufacturer's pre-mixed color. Last week we created some tints of those colors by mixing in some water and diluting the strength of the dye. Well, this week we're going to create some tones. So we're going to tone down that intensity of the color by adding some gray. And last week I wasn't really happy with the spread of the values that I did. So this week I'm going to try to do a little better on that, and we'll see where we get. So I'm going to switch to the overhead camera right now, and then I'm going to show you the colors we're going to be working with, and then we'll get to mixing up our tones. So here we go to the overhead camera, and these are the colors we're going to be working with. This is our orange from the manufacturer, and it's a very, very bright, kind of a day glow orange. This is our violet from the manufacturer, and it's a very strong, very kind of a neutral purple. It doesn't lean one way or the other, so it doesn't have a lot of red in it, and it doesn't have a lot of blue in it. So these are the primary or secondary colors from the manufacturer. So what we're going to do today, as I said, is we're going to take these colors and we're going to add in some gray. And the color we're going to be using is called neutral gray, and it's a color from the manufacturer. So it's a very neutral gray, as the name says. So let me put some of this aside, and I'm going to go ahead and put my gloves on right now so that I don't get my hands all stained. And then we'll start mixing up our gray with our color. So if you're here, pop in the chat and let me know you're here and say hi. And if you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat. Or if you're watching the replay, if you have any questions, you can always put them in the comments. So this is the orange that we'll be using, the orange dye, and this is the neutral gray. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take and mix in some gray with the orange. So I'm going to start out with 4 tablespoons of orange in each of these cups. And then I'm going to add in varying amounts of gray to them. So let me get my 4 tablespoons of orange in each color, or each cup. Clean off my spoon first to make sure it doesn't have any dye on it from before. And I'm not going to do just the straight orange because I already have samples of that. One, 2. And the 4 tablespoons in here. So when I mixed my dye this morning, I only mixed a half a cup because I knew I wasn't going to need a full cup. So I did a half a cup of water to a half a teaspoon of dye. And that's the formula, 1 to 1. 1 cup of water, 1 teaspoon of dye, half a cup of water, half a teaspoon of dye. Okay, so that's the orange. Get this out of the way. Trying to keep my work surface clean so that I don't get unwanted dye on the fabric. So now I'm going to add some gray to each of these cups. So the first cup, I'm going to add 4 tablespoons of gray. So it'll be a 1 to 1 proportion. And I'm not sure how well you can see on the screen, but you should be able to see the color change. Let me see, do I want 4 or 2? Trying to decide if I want to do 4 or 2, if I want that dramatic of a change. So what I'm going to do is just put some color down here on the, I think I'm just going to do 2 because that is a change, a big change already. And for this one, I'm going to do 4. So let me put the cap back on this before I spill it. If you were here last week, I spilled twice. So I am a klutz. So let's go look at this. This is the first one. Let me do something different. I'm going to get a paper towel. And this is one thing you can do to kind of get a feel for what your color is going to be. Let me get a paper towel. Okay, so I have the paper towel. I'm just going to put a little dye on the paper towel. And if you can see that, that's what our color is going to be, or close to that. And now I'm going to put a little of the other one on the paper towel so we can see the difference. Okay, I'm going to go with that. I think that's going to be different enough values that I can work with that. Get these spoons out of the way. So what I'm going to do now is bring over my fabric pieces, which have already been soaked in soda ash. I'm going to move this so that I don't spill it, and bring out my resist pieces and a couple clamps. So this is the square fold. I'm continuing with the square fold, and if this is your first time watching this stream, or watching one of my streams, you can go back and watch some of the previous ones and see the how I folded fabric. So I'm just going to put this on the fabric, one on top, one on bottom, and use my spring clamps to hold them in place. And now I'm going to use a pipette. I like to use pipettes or squeeze bottles and apply the dye to the fabric. So you can see how much duller already this orange is compared to the original. And this is the one with 2 tablespoons of gray in it. So I take and apply the dye with the pipette, opening up the layers of the fabric to make sure I get dye down in between all the layers. Now I'm flipping it over and I'm going from the other side, again making sure that I get down in between all the layers of fabrics. So this fabric is smaller than the pieces that I've been doing, mainly because I'm starting to run out of room to store all these. So this piece was like 12 by 15 instead of an 18 by 24 piece of fabric. See that there's some areas where I don't have dye inside. So this was 2 tablespoons of gray to 4 tablespoons of orange. Okay, that looks like I've got everything down in between the way I want it. So I'm just going to set this aside. And bring out the second orange piece. And this one we're going to, let's see, I've got dye on my gloves. This is going to be the 4 to 4. So 4 tablespoons of orange and 4 tablespoons of gray. So before I do that, I need to put my resist pieces on. Okay, now that I've got that, I can apply the dye. Almost messed up. Getting ahead of myself. So you can see this is very, very dulled down. So just keep applying the dye with the pipette in between the layers of the fabric. Just open this up and get some dye down there. So if you haven't watched any of the other live streams, I recommend you go back and watch the replays, and you can see where we started with the original color from the manufacturer, and we've taken and created some tints from it, and now we're creating some tones. In another one of the live streams, we actually mixed up a violet and a purple and a green instead of using the manufacturer's colors, just so we could compare the difference between the two. And I'm not going to spoil it and tell you the results, so I'd like you to go back and watch that. And if you could, let me know what you think. What do you like best, the original manufacturer's colors or the colors that we mixed up? Okay, one more look to make sure I've got enough dye down in between the layers. And I'll set this one aside and we'll move on to the violet. Just clean my hands so I don't transfer any orange to the violet fabric. Okay, so this is also a square fold and it's been soaked in the soda ash. Let me just refold it. And for this, I'm going to take a small square and I'm going to place it off center. Okay. So now, I guess I should have mixed my colors before I did this. Let me set this out of the way. So we're going to work with the violet. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to mix up 4 tablespoons in each cup. That won't fit. Okay, now 4 tablespoons in this cup. Now I'll add my gray to these 2 cups. So I'm going to do 2 tablespoons of gray in 1 cup and 4 in the other. Okay, there we go. Now I can set the dyes aside. Let's take and put these on the paper towel too. So let's see here. See if I have enough room on this one. So this is the one with 2 tablespoons of gray. And this is the one with 4 tablespoons of gray. Okay. It doesn't seem to be as dramatic of a difference on the violet as it was the orange, but I guess we'll find out when we unveil the fabrics tomorrow. So here's the first one. Let me move this away. Last week I kept spilling the purple or the violet, so let's get it out of the way. Let's see what happens this week. One of the viewers suggested it's because violet is my least favorite color. Well, it may be. That may be unconsciously why I kept spilling it. So I'll just lift up all the layers. And turn it over. Now I'm going to go in between the folds. I suppose I could have had a cloth down there to soak up that dye. I might come back and do that off camera. Seems a waste to just let that dye just sit there and not be used. Okay, well it looks like I've got enough dye in between all of these layers. And I will just leave this to set. Okay. Okay, now on to the last piece. Again, I'm going to clamp it with squares. Oops, I need more clamps. Didn't bring out enough clamps. Okay. I think this is something like what I did on that other one. Go get some clamps. Make sure I get this the way I want it. Okay, now we're ready to apply the dye. So this is the 4 tablespoons of violet and 4 tablespoons of gray. From what I'm seeing, like I said, this doesn't seem to be as dramatic of a change as the orange from what I can see right now, just applying the dyes to the fabric. I wonder how it's going to be when it's actually rinsed out. Just working my way through the layers. I'll turn this over and work from the other side. Okay, almost done with this part. Just one more layer to go through. And I think that's done. So I'm going to set these aside and leave these overnight. In the morning, I will rinse them out and we will see what they look like. But I will take and put just a small piece of fabric in the bottom here to collect all of that dye so it just doesn't go to waste. So that's basically what we've accomplished today is we created some tones. And a tone is a way to change the intensity of the color that you're working with. And by intensity, we mean the brightness or the dullness of a color. The original colors from the manufacturers were very bright, and that's about as bright as you're going to get them. So by adding that gray, we tone down that intensity. It's less bright. It's like turning down the switch on a dimmer light. You want to turn down the brightness of that light, and that's what we're doing with the gray. We're turning down the brightness of that color. So these need to sit overnight, and that will allow the dye to bond with the fabric. And tomorrow morning, before the live stream, I will rinse them out and show you the results during the live stream. So I do hope you come back tomorrow to watch that stream. And if you don't get a chance to do that, you can always watch the replay. But I would like to ask you a favor. If you like these live streams that I'm doing, if you would go ahead and hit like on them, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. That way I can keep doing more of these if this is something that people are interested in. So I want to say I appreciate you coming today. I hope to see you back here tomorrow. But until then, I want you to have a beautiful day.